If you'll notice your schedule, our next presenter has agreed with me to introduce her as Dr. Mary. Many of you already know her from her previous work in some of our training. Dr. Mary has graduated with her PhD in civil engineering at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. She is currently a research scientist with 5 years of experience in transportation safety and public transportation. Dr. Mary has been PI for over $1 million of project funding, including the lead on the driver training using the ride simulator. She has assisted with numerous RTAP training events at various locations across Alabama, working with the team that's doing the training now in other areas. And those cities visited included Tuscaloosa, Huntsville, Fairhope, Eufaula, Pelham, Mobile, and other locations. She is currently leading the next 3-year effort to offer driver training and public transit safety to transit agencies statewide. Please welcome Dr. Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Estes, and thank you everybody for coming today and staying until now. I know the food coma has hit us, and Lindsay experienced but hopefully mine is going to be better, Lindsay. Not that it's a competition, but I'm winning. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank everybody for nominating me, well, the people who work with me, and Gary, Lindsay, and Dr. Anderson, because it's a group effort and it's not possible without everybody being there. I appreciate your effort, and it's such a joy being a part of the team. For people who don't know me, I'm Dr. Mary. I work for UAH. I do crash analysis, mainly looking at the reasons why people have crashes. Is there anything that we can do engineering-wise on segments of roadways? I'm going to tell you this. Alabama DOT has put a lot of effort and money into making the roadways safer. Okay, so we have site-specific areas that we go in and we look through some reasons. Do we need to widen the road? Do we need extra signs here? And things like that, okay? But specifically for this project, I have looked at some transit bus crashes and why people, basically your drivers, have issues. One of the most important reasons was follow too close, which is 30% of our database. The second one is over a speed limit, which is roughly 15%, and the misjudged stopping distance is 15%. So now I understand it's a little bit intertwined, all these categories, because you see that if you're going over a speed limit, then you're going to have an issue stopping. So I want to tell you a little bit about where I got this data. This is a crash data. Every time any driver in your agency have a crash, then the police goes and writes a report. So that becomes a table and comes to me. So this specific data that I'm giving you is 2014 to 18. And it's only transit bus crashes, okay? So by looking at that, then we're gonna explain why we came up with the courses we came up with and what is the plan for the future based on what we know. One more thing that's our plan to do is that hopefully all of you will be willing to give us your crash data and with more details so we can do further research on the reasons why your drivers may have issues, and then hopefully helping them in the trainings that follows. Okay, so the current trainings include defensive driving, close quarter maneuvering, and preventive maintenance and hazardous driving. And we're going to tell you a gist of what your drivers hear, because some agencies can only send a few people. And we don't have these every time we go see you, so it changes. So you may have, some people may have missed some of the trainings, so hopefully you will go back and motivate them to, first of all, show to the trainings and show up to our trainings, and also like whatever you learn from this, maybe take it back. So during this COVID, I mean, everybody had issues like having any sort of trainings everywhere you looked at, okay? But the only people, I think that, you know, kept it going, just like Lindsay said, our numbers haven't changed that much, even though we had restrictions. And I mean, the picture on the left shows how we used to do it. And some of you might have come to that simulator. It's very cramped. Sometimes we had like up to 12 people in there, minus myself and Dr. Nielsen. And so we changed it up to like taking people so that the social distancing can be in place. And then also, you know, I personally clean so we send like the drivers afterwards one by one to the simulator, and I personally clean every single time everyone touches anywhere that they could have touched. Okay, so as far as safety, cleanliness, we're doing our job. Okay, so while your drivers are driving, or even yourself, this basically is everyone, there are hazards around them. So basically, like that crazy driver coming at them, there's a kid on the bike on the left, and so those are the hazards. So this is what we call like the circle of influence. While they're driving, they're also thinking about the family and friends, you know, so like they're thinking about their health, you know, did I pick up my prescription? What should I make for dinner tonight? Should I call my mom tonight or not? How's my kid doing? Again, while they're driving, that's going into their head. Also, one more thing is that they're thinking about the next stop. What is the route that I'm going to take? And instead of driving, this is like keeping their attention away. Also, the environment inside of the bus and outside. So outside, what is it? It's rain. I mean, have you noticed like people get extra manic when it rains? Why do you think that is? Like, everybody's trying to go as fast as they can to get to where they want to go, and this is where this is an environment where your drivers are driving in, you know, so we understand that, but you know, what can we do? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But environment inside of the bus. So I want to tell you this, and raise hands if you've ever heard this story. Every agency almost all of them has told us about this little Miss Sally, I would call her Miss Sally, that sits in the back of the driver, like the basically front seat, and leans forward and talks the whole time. Yeah. I'm sorry. So basically, she's the sweetest little lady that hasn't talked to anybody in probably 3 or 4 days, you know, and sees the driver, and the driver's the captive listener, you know, and I made this, I did that, you know, and I tell your drivers, it's like, it's okay, you want to be nice. You don't want to say, hey, little Miss Sally, please stop talking to me. No, actually, just like Lindsay said, they love the passengers. So what can they do in that situation? So the first course that we had, and we still have it, at least until September, I think is the last session, but SMART stands for Scan, Measure Risk, Anticipate Action, Reach a Decision, Trust Your Decision. What we've done is like to try to come up with the SMART method so that that's easy for them to remember. But the reality is we are hoping that the repetition of this will help them more, because once something is repeatedly, emphasized to you, then that's more effective. So we actually tell them that they're responsible for all of the sides of the vehicle. When we ask them to give us a number, they say 4. And when I tell them, have you ever heard that somebody goes and rips the top of the bus, everybody laughs, because at least in one time in every agency that has happened, that they went under a clearance, they didn't know how tall their bus was. So what we were trying to say is your bus is this tall. If you see a clearance of 11 feet, for instance, if your bus is 9.5 to 10.5 feet, then even if it's 11 feet, you should not go under that awning. And the reason is you don't know if it's been paved. I mean, we've had situations where the passengers were in the car, in the bus, and then passing through, going to the door wasn't an issue. But once the passengers were off the bus, then the bus got it got pulled up a little bit, and then that was like, that's what you hear. It rips the top of the bus, right? So again, everybody in every agency has heard that story, that happens, often. So again, by telling them what the measurements are, there's something that they probably should know. But again, by reminding them, we tell them, okay, passengers, as nice as they are, sometimes they want to be dropped off by the door, if not inside. So you gotta be able to, if you know how tall your bus is, you can just say, hey, I don't want to be mean to you. I want to be nice and helping, but the reality is I can't get under that, okay? We tell them to measure the risk. Not everything is a risk, right? So like if there's a ball bouncing down the road, that's not a risk. But you then have to see that there is a risk associated with that. Then there's that kid that is coming right after the ball. After you measure the risk and kind of like gauge, is that, like for instance, if you see like a crazy driver swerving around, would you, I mean, I would probably say, I tell them to just take their time and say, okay, you do you, and I'm gonna be 10 minutes behind you, because whatever you do, no good is coming out of that, okay? So we tell them to read the signs, measure the risk, and drive safely. Anticipate the action, just like the swerving guy. Like if you see somebody's driving recklessly, they're not gonna change in like 2 minutes, right? They're on the road when you're on the road. So they need to basically anticipate the craziest thing. When I tell them, when I got my driver's license, my mom told me, okay, imagine like there's like an asylum that everybody got a set of keys and a car, and everybody's on the road. Do not give the benefit of the doubt to people in the roadways, because sometimes, because no one wakes up in the morning thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a crash today. No, everybody's thinking, okay, this is gonna be a new day, it's gonna be the same day, and that gets them into trouble. And that's why it's useful for them to come to training, so they get out of that complacent, like, every day I'm doing this, every day I'm picking this, lady and going that route, so what can happen? Something can happen, right? Accidents and crashes is just like fraction of a second. So we want them to, after that, reach a decision. Like we always tell them, do not, especially with Lindsay, like showing them and making them feel like when they're sitting in the back of the bus, that every time they slam on the brake, like the passenger goes this, like woo, and that's not comfortable, especially if you're in a wheelchair. So we tell them, like, do not slam on the brakes unless you have to. And even if you have to, then you should do it, then trust yourself. So trust, T stands for trust your decision, meaning that, if you have to slam on the brake, go ahead and do it with all the pressure and power you have. We've heard people that did not, were thinking about different things, their families and little Miss Sally, and then they push on the gas. We've heard that before. Instead of pushing on the brake, and we know how bad that could be. So the next course we've had so far is close quarter maneuvering. Basically, what it includes is like slow forward and backward movements. Okay, so like trying to fit in small spaces, and they all have to do that. The driveways of people they pick up are sometimes really tight. It's not designed for a bus, it's designed for a passenger car. But they still have to go and pick them up. Before we move on, I want to tell you, like the simulator, after the course, we put them on a scenario, and they're usually related to, basically what they have been taught that day. And one of the things we tell them, in this case, we intentionally have time things so that they can hit their car, their bus. So I'm being the mean girl because let's face it, they can do it on the simulator, nothing bad can happen. I can reload that scenario and it will be okay. But if in real world that happens, then that's a lot of trouble. So we put them in positions where they have to make like rapid decisions. Either it's like changing lanes or like yielding or slamming on the brake. In this course, we put them somewhere basically like to park really in a tight space. And I'm going to tell you this, in the entire state, only 3 drivers did not hit anywhere while like parking in that confined space that we designed. So it is supposed to be hard. It is supposed to like scare them, I guess, in a way that, it can happen to you. So one of the things when we teach the close quarter maneuvering, we show them this picture. We tell them, what is this guy doing? And everybody gets so talkative. It's like, oh yeah, what are they doing? They're not even using the mirrors. Like, they can't even see from the back. And they're like laughing at the guy. And they are telling us about this guy. Okay, so I'm going to call this guy Mr., let's say Ford. Okay, so this is this sweet little guy, okay? He, little Miss Sally sits in the front, he sits in the back. And what he wants to do, he's worked like 50 years of his life, he's the most productive person you've ever seen. So of course he wants to get on the bus and help out. So what he does is that he's the spotter for your driver. So he looks and he's like, couple more feet, come on back in, like you have more couple, and and they listen, they listen, and that's what creates issues. So that's one of the things we tell them is like, what is he doing wrong? And they tell us obviously, oh, they can't see the back, and they're like, okay, what can you do? The simplest thing, get out and look. Okay, so like, I know this is like really simple, but like some of the drivers, especially new drivers, they rely on other people. They're like, okay, so-and-so told me this, but that's not enough, okay? You wouldn't accept, how would you feel if your driver came to you and said, oh, I listened to this and this person? You'd be like, I don't care. I don't care who was your passenger today. You were driving their bus. You should have kept it. I mean, even if it's like hitting like a mailbox, that's still not acceptable. So just get out and look. If Mr. Ford is telling you, just come on a couple more feet, tell him, look, I appreciate you, but I'm going to get out and look for myself. So one of the other things, this is the last thing, that basically we talk about, this goes with the preventive maintenance, like pre-checks that Lindsay does. And it's basically looking at the vehicle maintenance and like all the signs. So we tell them that those signs are basically the language of your bus. Okay, it's like knowing the alphabets, right? One funny story is that, I'm not going to say who it was or which agency, but one time I was teaching this and I asked them, okay, I pointed at the check engine light and I asked the class, what is that sign? And she was like, oh, I know. And I was like, okay, and she said, oh, this is like an old bus indicator. I was like, old bus indicator, what do you mean? And she said, yeah, like in our agency, all the old buses have that on, but all the new buses, it is something that, a lot of people may not even believe that like someone might not even know what check engine light is, but the reality is we're seeing those people that they are not familiar with it. So I'm actually very glad that person actually came and learned. I mean, we had a good laugh. I've told that story probably more than 20 times, so it worked itself out at the end of the day. But I just want to tell you that this, again, like all these signs, if you and I don't know, then it's our fault, and we will pay for it if something bad happens. But if they don't know what this means, then that means that if somebody gets hurt, it's their fault. Not only they're responsible for their own life, they're responsible for their passenger's life and their vehicle. And that's what we're trying to, tell them that, look, this is important for many reasons. So, okay, as mean as I am, mean Dr. Mary, I actually put them on a scenario. They're thinking, okay, something is going to jump at them, right? But nothing does. So what happens is, after they're driving for like a minute or so, they're like pulling over. I'm asking them, okay, so what happened? You know, have you checked your, you know, your gauges and stuff? And they're like looking, oh yeah, my engine is overheating, like what happened? And I'm like over there, obviously changing it up, you know, overheating the vehicle on purpose so that I can like prove a point that you, the whole time you were driving, you did not even look at your dashboard. And they're like, oh, you're tricking us and things. But then the reality is if your vehicle is overheated, you only have 30 seconds from the time that light comes on until you can shut the engine off without the engine goes boom, okay? And we show them a video that indicates that that actually happens. So we tell them to pull off in the safe location, turn the engine off. In the entire state of Alabama, doing this training, only one person knew what to do. They looked and saw the light and they pulled over. Only one driver did that. So we tell them do not open the hood. Do not at all until the gauge is cool, and then do not open the radiator cap. A lot of them are like, yeah, I'm gonna grab like a piece of cloth, I'm gonna go open that and see what's up. No, don't do that, because the hot water can just just the heat from that engine is really high, you know, it's almost burning. And then calm your passengers down. You know, your passengers have no idea. You know, obviously they know that there's something up, but they don't know what it is. So you have to calm them down. They want to go to the doctor's appointment. They're already late. They're complaining. But you got to calm them, say that, like, the dispatcher is coming and everything's taken care of. So we put them on this scenario before we do this, that, like, I blow up their, again, ha ha ha, but I blow their tire up usually like when there's traffic coming at them, and you know, I want to see what they do, right? They're drifting and then they hear it, they're like, oh, I have a blowout. And so what would they do? And we asked them, what would you do? And I mean, most of them know that they have to pull over, obviously. But when they pull over, we check to see are they safely away from the road, because you don't want them to open the door and walk into traffic, you know. And then you know, again, you explain to your passengers, you calm them down. And this is the last thing. I'm sorry if I'm like, am I going too fast?
Not now.
Okay. All right, so the windy driving. One of the things that is significant about these vehicles is that because they're so tall, wind has more power or more surface to hit and then have more power to tilt the vehicle. So, I mean, you have driven, every now and then I hear that, like, you know, you guys also drive the buses, so you probably know what I'm talking about. But this is much more significant than your own passenger bus if you've never been on a bus. So you have to always like keep your hands like on your wheel, because there's something significant about Alabama's weather. It's very unpredictable. Like, you know, you cannot really predict the weather that much. And, you know, you can have like, you know, no wind or like really, you know, just a breeze, and then you pass like a certain area and all of a sudden there's that gust of wind that, imagine with that big vehicle, and I mean, sometimes it's scary, I'm not gonna lie. It gets to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, what if I'm on this bridge, what if I lose the control of my vehicle? So we tell them to like have both their hands on their wheel and slow down. You know, going faster makes it harder and basically makes it easier for your bus to tilt. And turn your headlights on, and always like be looking out for the objects, because just like we told them in the first class, you are responsible for all 6 sides. So if there's something on the road, then you need to know and avoid it. I've done a lot of studies on crashes and like in the rain time, you know. So one of the things I'm going to tell you, like, other than people also like driving crazy, there's another thing, that the first 20 minutes that it rains, the roadway is much more like slippery than any other time, okay? But the problem is the first 20 minutes, everybody's like, oh my God, I have to go home. And therefore they drive faster. And the driving faster makes the stopping distance a lot longer, okay? So that could be potentially one of the issues that your drivers have. Also, the follow too close. I've asked your drivers this before, that how many times they've seen somebody, you know, that are just like safely parked and they see their vehicle and they pull right in front of them. And they say that happens a lot. And I mean, one of the potential reasons could be a lawsuit. You know, they can get a lot of money if they can actually, because I mean, if somebody's going right in front of them and they're going 45 miles, then stopping that vehicle is going to take a long time. So there is a chance that they actually, you know, hit the car. So I'm saying, like, there are people that may want to, like, intentionally hit your buses, and that's a scary thought for you and your drivers. But hopefully coming to these trainings will help them tremendously on how to control and just, like, you know, watch out for that crazy driver. And for the rainy driving, you know, put them on like a super rainy and windy situation, like a scenario where they have to hold the wheel really tight, and then we like talk to them about visibility and issues that can bring. So based on that, just to wrap it up, we have come up with 3 classes in the future, and again, we're gonna do more research on and decide which one of these we have to go with first. And if you had any comments, please come talk to me. Again, I'm Dr. Mary. You can email me. If you talk to Gary, he will tell me anything that is necessary to change or modify. But we have looked at, you know, your driver's schedule, and we know that a lot of people have morning dialysis routes, meaning that they have to drive in dark environments. When we say like dusk and dawn, especially in winter, you know, we have like deer crash issues. Like a lot of people have that issue, and they ask us like, why do they like us? Like, don't they know we're coming and we can kill them? And the reality is the deer actually sees the other side of the road, you know, so the light is illuminating the other side of the road, and they're like, oh, I'm safe, let me run in front of this car, go to the other side. So obviously they don't understand, nor that could they be trained. So the only way is to train your drivers what to do when they feel like there's a presence of deer. And then the managing intersection is also another course that we need to work on, because I mean, because of how large the vehicle is, you have to pass the intersection in the reasonable amount of time. And then like all the issues that the visibility, you know, not having, you know, all the access can create. We're going to talk about that and discuss. The last one is the fatigue and impaired driving, and that's a lot of our drivers are older, and that kind of creates, you know, you're taking a medicine that may make you dizzy, you know, and it may interact with a certain like food you had for breakfast or something like that. And we're going to talk to them about driving in those situations. Also being tired, especially people who have to get up at like 4:30 and pick somebody up at 5, they might have those issues. And we're going to have a course of like what to do and what not to do, and how to watch for it. I want to thank every single one of you, especially in the COVID time. I mean, I know a lot of people needed to be taken to their doctor's appointments and places like that, and I think you're the true heroes. And your drivers for actually not stopping their work, especially the ones that are older. I really appreciate, I always tell them how much respect I have for them, and also for you guys for managing that, because without you, it wouldn't be possible. Thank you everyone for having me here, and have a good day, I guess.